friend of mine owns a pastry shop up in Toronto. During the Christmas holiday season, Hanukkah, New Year, he produces about 4,400 pounds of cookies. Prior to him getting Aeronox, he was taking the cookies out of his rack oven and putting them over on the side, and eventually when they came down in temperature, he'd wrap them or package them or put them inside his display case, or he'd ship them. He was losing 14% shrink on those cookies. They were just shrinking. If you see steam rising up in the air, what's that steam? Do you know what it might be? Moisture, very good. So his cookies were shrinking 14%. We introduced Aeronox to Joseph. Now he takes his cookies out of the oven, he puts it into the Aeronox, and they only shrink 4%. So he's reduced his shrink down to only 4%, which meant dollar-wise to him, he's getting $16 a pound. He grossed that year in cookies $70,400 retail. He figures he saved $7,000 just in shrink alone. If you see steam rising from your food, that's your food evaporating. Another customer, they make rotisserie chickens. It's a big corporate chain. Over 500 stores in the United States. Over 500 stores in the world. They were taking their rotisserie chickens off the spit, packaging them, and putting them inside their display case. The law says you have 4 hours to display this product. After 4 hours, you either use them or you lose them. This company had such a focus on quality control that after 2 hours, they were losing them. They were just throwing them away to the tune of over 1 million pounds of chicken a year. Very wasteful, but it is what it is. We introduced Aeronox to this company. They now took their chickens off their display after 2 hours. Took the meat off the bone, blast chilled it. Now they make rotisserie chicken soup with it, rotisserie chicken pot pie, rotisserie chicken salad, rotisserie, I can't tell you how many different products they make. The same company was making meatloaf. Their goal was to have a pound meatloaf when it was done cooking. In order to do that, they needed 1 1/3 pounds in order to come out with a pound. When they introduced Aeronox to that product, they no longer needed to make 1 1/3 pounds of raw product. They only needed to have 1 1/4 pounds. It doesn't make much sense, or it doesn't mean much to you if you're only making one meatloaf, or if you only have one rotisserie chicken. But the odds are that you're going to do tons of product over your lifetime. And to be able to stop that evaporation of your product is major. But I got a question for everybody. How do you define fresh? What's your definition of fresh? Is this working? Who's got an answer? Natural? Say it again, please. Natural is one. Who else might have an answer? What's your definition of fresh? Straight off the fire?
The time it's available to you.
Very good. What else? Anybody else? I can't hear you. Never frozen. That's a great one, right?
Yes.
We really don't want to have a frozen product, right? Right, because it has such a negative connotation to it, right? In reality, well, first of all, some people might even say, well, from the farm to my plate, or just made today, right? It's all over the place. I like a soup on the next day instead of the first day. There's a better melding of flavors, right? Is that fresh? You might call that fresh, okay? But what is the reality of fresh to you? Virtually, it's a couple of areas. When it comes in your back door, just because you get scallops today doesn't mean that they were farmed today or they were harvested today. Just because you order lasagna, a customer, you order lasagna, more than likely that wasn't fresh today. The reality of fresh is, as you said, a moment in time. You said a moment in time? Who said the time? Time. It's a moment in time. That's the reality of fresh. Because we all know that the muffins that you're serving on that banquet tonight weren't just made, didn't just come out of the oven. They probably were cooked the morning of. But we would still define that as fresh. What blast chilling and shock freezing is all about is the redefinition of fresh, is stopping your product in time, stopping that moisture loss. If you see steam rising from your food, not only is it losing moisture, but what else is it losing? Weight. Very good. What else? Nutrients. Very good. What else? Flavor? Very good. What else? Say it again. Quality. Yep. What else? Huh? Color. Very good. It's losing all those properties. It's losing its aroma, because you can usually smell food. So it's losing its aroma first of all. If it's losing its aroma, you know it's losing its flavor. If it's losing its moisture, you know it's losing its weight. If it's losing its moisture, it's losing its texture. It's losing its nutritional value. These are all important characteristics of food that we prepare. I mean, we take food, we get it in the back door, and we may clean it, marinate it, cook it, and then bang, it's done. And if we don't use it right away, what happens to it? Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. But now that you're using blast chilling and shock freeze technology, what this allows you to do is you go through the same preparation process. Then bang, it's done. And then this is what happens to it. Does anybody know the definition of blast chilling? Getting it down to temp? Anybody else? How might you define blast chilling? How about the rapid reduction? Oh, go ahead. Very good. This is the rapid reduction of your product's core temperature to 37 degrees in 90 minutes or less. Technically, that's the definition of blast chilling. The definition of shock freezing is the rapid reduction of your product's core temperature to 0 degrees in 4 hours or less. Where do these rules come from? Who designed them? We know that HACCP says how many hours do you have to chill a product? Huh? 6 hours total, right? You got 2 hours to get the product below 70 degrees. Then you have 4 hours to get the product to below 40 degrees, correct? Everybody in agreement? Yes. Say it again? Yes. Good. So where did these laws come from? They actually were developed in France. France, right now, you can't put a product into your walk-in hot. What happens if I take 20 gallons of soup and I put it inside my walk-in? Exactly. What happens if I take 20 gallons of soup and put it inside my freezer? The same thing, right? With the freezer, what happens is it's what's known as heat shock. I take the surface of the products that are around, that warm product, and I raise it above freezing, and then it refreezes to form what? Macro crystals, right? Okay. With the blast, when I walk into my walk-in cooler with hot product, what do I do with the surface temperature of the products around there? Heat them up above 40 degrees, right? So what's the bacterial growth rate for product between 40 and 140 degrees? Anybody know?
3 times?
Every 15 minutes, bacteria doubles when between 40 and 140 degrees. Yeah, it keeps going. As long as it's between 40 and 140 degrees, bacteria keeps on doubling. So I've just taken that hot product and I've either put it in my freezer or I put it inside my walk-in cooler, and now I've just ruined the integrity of that product and also shortened the shelf life. So you might be scratching your head because, you bought this product off of a vendor. Last week it was fine. It lasted for 4 or 5 days. And this week, I only got 3 days out of it. You're talking to the vendor and saying you're not sending me fresh product. In reality, he still is. You just put hot soup or you just put hot product inside your walk-in. Okay? I talked about shock freezing. What are the benefits of shock freezing? Well, microcrystals are one of them. Okay? This is all the science I know. You ready? Here's your food cell. Inside your food cell, what is your food cell comprised of? What else? Water and what else? And solids. Solids and liquids, right? Unless you're doing ice cream and then there's a third component, what is that? Air. Right? So here's your food cell. I slow freeze my product. In the slow freezing process, I develop macrocrystals. Those macrocrystals eventually expand and break the cellular lining. So that when it thaws out, what happens to it? What was that? What did you say? It bleeds. Very good. So everybody's familiar when you thaw out a steak, right? It bleeds, correct? That's because it was frozen slowly and the cellular structure was damaged. So what is that blood on the bottom of that plate? It's your weight, exactly. It's your flavor, color, all the things I mentioned before, nutritional value. But what's more important? Your moisture, the natural juices. That's your weight. Everything that we sell in this business is by the pound. We figure everything out by the pound. Even though you're buying a 4-ounce piece of chicken that's already, let's say pre-portioned, it's still sold by the pound. And when you figure out the food cost for that plate, it's by the pound. If I can increase my yield on products by 3 to 5%, what's that going to do for your bottom line food cost? In this industry, we fight for pennies. We fight for pennies. The more pennies you make, the more profitable you are. Blast chilling and shock freezing are going to help you preserve those pennies. So again, the juices, the flavor, the nutrients, the color, the texture. Also, what it allows you to do is look at making seasonal purchases. If I'm not going to have the bleed on my product, then I should be able to have a product that is closest to its original integrity. So typically you wouldn't know that steak was frozen. Typically you wouldn't know that piece of fish was frozen. You wouldn't know that berry was frozen. And I got a little test we'll do, okay? Right now this is running at minus 36 degrees. Yes, this pan is cold. Raspberry. Minus 36 degrees. You ready? Why could I do that? Ice crystals. These are frozen in snow-like particles. Try a raspberry. And try a raspberry. What's going to happen in a second is you're going to have a flavor explosion. Okay, what's it taste like?
Raspberry.
Like raspberry. Okay. Now that's not so strange, is it? Have you ever had frozen raspberries that you or frozen strawberries that you have in the gallon jugs? Go ahead.
Is there something else to be said about how fast it happens? You don't have to worry about flavors bleeding into one another?
The question is there something to be said for how quick you freeze so that flavors don't blend in with one another? You're partially right, because if you freeze slowly and you're breaking the food cells down, then not so much flavors, but moisture is going to escape out of the product. So anybody ever look at ice cream and you peel the top plastic on ice cream and you see the ice crystals? Okay, those are macrocrystals. Okay, that's it losing its natural flavors. So let's take some of these berries. Okay. We're going to put them on the plate here. And we're just going to watch them melt. We're going to put them over here on the side, okay? And what we're going to do is a little bit later, we're going to come back to them. You're going to see how little they bleed, okay? Now, you can't take a soft berry and think that you're going to make it better. The berry itself has to be in good shape in the first place. So the firmer they are, the better they are. You're not going to take a piece of fish that's bad and make it good. What you're going to do is what? Stop it in time. You're going to stop it at the point that it's at. So one of these raspberries may bleed more than the other. That's because it may be softer than the other, okay? So we're just going to put these over here for now. So then I have frozen banana. And if you look at it, if you show that around, Jeff, you can see that, Jay, you can see that it's really not even oxidized. Then we take something like an apple. It's frozen solid. Go ahead. What's the question?
So is that not cold enough to burn your tongue when you eat it?
No, because dry ice is probably, I don't know what temperature dry ice runs at. I think it's below -70. At that point, you're probably talking about. I mean, I wouldn't put my tongue on the wall of that. You know. What was that movie? I forget the name of that movie. What was it? Christmas Story. Okay. So here's a frozen apple. Here's a knife. Because of the snow-like particles, because of the microcrystals, I could cut through the apple. If this was a traditional frozen apple, you wouldn't be able to do it as easily. This apple is probably somewhere around -30 degrees right now. Okay? If I took... Where's the banana? Oh. If I took the banana... That's because of snow-like particles. If that was a traditional frozen banana, you wouldn't be able to cut through it.
You need a hacksaw.
Exactly, you need a hacksaw. So, benefits of shock freezing is seasonal purchasing is big. Those raspberries right now are probably costing $4.99 a pint. In the summertime, I can buy those for probably $1.49 a pint. What's that do to your bottom line food cost? I work for a company, we used to buy a ton of swordfish every September, October. Right? We'd take that swordfish, we'd cut it in 20, 25-pound slabs, we'd double bag it and freeze it, we'd pull it out for Christmas parties in December. I didn't say that this was a fine dining restaurant, but it was a restaurant that I worked at. And we'd have to trim that much around the outside because of the macrocrystals. And then on the bottom of the bag, there'd be a couple pounds of bleed. Well, we were getting $26.95 for a 12-ounce portion of swordfish. Between what we had to trim on the outside and the bleed, probably accounted for somewhere between 3.5 pounds or as much as 15%. Technically, if I wanted to, if they wanted to right now, instead of them buying a ton of swordfish, they could buy 1,700 pounds of swordfish and have the same amount of yield because they're not going to experience the bleed. So seasonal purchasing is very big for you. We buy product when it's at its best price. If we can preserve its quality, then this is why freezing may actually apply to your operation. Again, freezing usually has a bad connotation to it. But when you see product like this, it really takes on a different meaning. Any questions on freezing right now? Jill?
So what would be the freezing temperature, and then what would be the conservation temperature in the freezer?
Very good question. You said, what's the freezing temperature or what's the conservation temperature? This unit itself has potential to go down to about minus 36 degrees. But it's designed, depending upon what mode you're in, is as you put hot product in there, okay, as it comes down in temperature, then the cabinet temperature comes up and meets it at 0 degrees. And if I can go back to the definitions of chilling and freezing, that's from the finished cooking temperature in 90 minutes or to 0 in 4 hours. Okay? It's from the finished cooking temperature. Let's talk about blast chilling.
Conservation for that product and if you want to extend the shelf life more than say 30 days, you could use a standard walk-in freezer or conservation for 30 days. Even longer than that, you're going to look for a lower cap.
And depending upon how you preserve the product will dictate how long you can actually store it. If you vacuum pack it, certain products have almost an indefinite shelf life, longer than what you would want it in your freezer. And I mean that some products 1 or 2 years. If you just put plastic over it and put it inside your freezer, you'll have a limited shelf life because eventually you'll freezer burn your product inside your freezer, where you won't freezer burn it inside here. Blast chilling benefits. Because we move the product through the danger zone so quickly, okay, we have less bacterial growth, right? Right? Okay. So typically if you're blast chilling a product, you'll double or triple the shelf life of that product. So a piece of chicken that you might keep in your mise en place for 2 days, you're talking about six days on the same piece of chicken. Pasta that you may only keep in your storage box for 2 days, you're talking about probably 9 days shelf life on it. I'm not telling you to cook pasta once every 9 days, okay, and I'm not telling you to cook chicken once every 6 days, but it's offering you options that you never knew you had because it doesn't have the bacterial growth. So less bacteria, longer shelf life. More bacteria, shorter shelf life. Does that make sense? Okay. So if I can keep a piece of chicken for 6 days, why would I throw it out? If I can store this broccoli for 8 or 9 days, why would I throw it out? There are companies in the United States that have a zero waste initiative. Their mission is to throw nothing out. Even when it goes to scrap, with the exception of proteins, they want to be able to use it in their gardens. Okay? But if I can double or triple the shelf life of a product, why would I throw it out? As we mentioned earlier, an increased yield. If I have more moisture, I have higher yield in blast chilling. So my piece of chicken is going to weigh more than yours. My cake is going to weigh more than yours. My cookie is going to weigh more than yours. As we mentioned earlier, it's a more intense flavor profile, color profile. Look at this broccoli. This broccoli was blast chilled.
Not ice water shocked whatsoever.
It was not ice water shocked. This was steamed and then blast chilled immediately. If it has more green, what else does it have? Say it again? More vitamins, more nutrients. If it has less bacteria, it has a longer shelf life also. So this broccoli has a more intense flavor profile than something that you would typically water shock. Okay? Labor utilization is important with blast chilling. Does it take twice as long to make 20 pounds of mashed potatoes as it does 10? Does it take 5 times as long to make 50 pounds of mashed potatoes as it does 10? Where do you spend your time? Say it again. Boiling. So that's the middle part, right? But you also spend time getting the product, right? You spend time cleaning up. Also at the beginning, getting your tools, okay? Then the middle time is the preparation, okay? And then there's the cleanup, right? So if I can double or triple the shelf life of a product, why would I make it once a day? If I can eliminate 4 of those setups and 4 of those cleanups, and now I'm going to extend my middle time a little bit, I've just dramatically saved on my labor. Does that make sense? Usually the more labor intensive a product is, the better the savings. So I could make a lasagna and probably save 50% labor on that one product. It's a pain in the neck product to make. Right? There's so many steps to it. The more intensive the product, the more savings. Mashed potatoes is one of the things that probably has the least amount of savings. But the point of it is that there's setup, there's cleanup, and there's the time in the middle.
Also, if you think about the example of the broccoli, we said we didn't have to ice water shock. So we didn't have to take the time to go to the ice machine. Wait, did we need the ice even? So we didn't even have to produce that. So there's electricity savings. There's a lot of other ancillary savings that you're going to see, not only in your labor time, how much work you have to put in, carrying those buckets of ice, doing all of that manual labor that we can avoid by utilizing this kind of a piece of equipment.
What's the daily consumption of labor?
I don't know what that is because there's something that's very unique about this machine is your freezer isn't meant for freezing, your walk-in cooler isn't meant for chilling, they're only meant for warehousing. But when I'm done with this unit, I turn it off. It's no longer running 24 hours in order for me to compensate for the hot product that you're putting in your walk-in. And when I say hot product, if you put anything inside your walk-in freezer that isn't frozen, that's hot to the freezer. That's hot to the walk-in. Okay? So I don't know the exact answer to that question because I'm not that technically advanced. What was your question? I'm sorry.
If you're turning it off and on all the time, how long does it take to get to the temperature that you need to chill something or freeze it?
Great question. The question is, if I'm turning it on and off, how long does it take to get to the temperature that I want it at? If I'm shock freezing this from room temperature, let's say 70 degrees, within 5 to 10 minutes it will be down to 0. Within another 5 to 10 minutes it will be down below minus 20, and probably within 30 minutes it will be down to minus 30 plus. The chilling part of it is a lot sooner because I'm not just going as low. Okay, sir.
I want to kind of ask a quick one with Chef's Renaissance. What's the power? What kind of power does this use? Is it 220, 120, and what's the amp rating?
It's 208 three-phase. We have units that are under counter and tabletop that are 208 single-phase. So it's again, when you start getting into amps like that, that gets over my head. I have cut sheets that I could send you that could help you evaluate that, or have you talk to a VP of engineering or something like that that would be able to answer those questions. But they're very, very efficient. They chill much quicker. Your walk-in isn't designed for chilling or freezing. It continuously works 24 hours a day. You never give it a rest. This gives it a rest. So I talked about energy. I talked about eliminating waste. And again, the shelf life of your standard refrigeration is going to be extended because if your walk-in freezer or your walk-in chiller, walk-in freezer or your walk-in cooler doesn't have to work as hard, you'll extend the shelf life of that. Does that make sense? Good. Questions? Now, let's just talk about the crystals one more time, okay? This is a good representative of macro crystals. Because they overexpand, they wind up breaking the cellular structure. The microcrystals stay smaller so that they never overexpand, and that way I was able to cut into that apple or that banana. Okay. So let's just do a couple products here, okay? got some mussels here. Nothing fancy. These mussels were steamed and then blast chilled. They blast chilled in all of about 5 minutes. Pretty quick, huh? What's the advantage of this, though? The big advantage of this is that these mussels will last. You ready? You're going to think I'm lying. 8 to 12 days. Nobody wants to hold on to mussels that long, right?
No.
And I'm not telling you to. But trust me, we've done the testing, the bacterial testing, to know that these mussels, as long as they're fresh coming in the back door, and that's the big variable there. Are they fresh coming in the back door? 8 to 12 days. I've made seafood salad with shrimp, calamari, mussels, scallops. And 12 days later, it was still edible. It's unheard of. It's totally unheard of. And as part of the problem with accepting blast chilling is that our definition of fresh isn't 12 days old. Not at all. But again, I'm not telling you to make seafood salad every 12 days. But sure as hell, at 6 days, that stuff is still really good. Why would you throw it out? Okay? So these were just quick steamed. And we're just going to toss them inside. Bring these up to heat. See the nice liqueur that I got out of there? When you got mussels in the back door, what's the first thing you're doing? It's kind of like raspberries. You're picking through them and you're throwing them out, right? It's fair to say you might lose 5 or 10% just to get them in the back door. You don't use them within 2 days, they're gone south, right? I now can take my mussels in the back door, steam them all, preserve the liqueur, okay, and then hold on to them until I sell them. Now, more than likely, if you're a smart buyer, you're not going to have these mussels for 2 or 3 days anyway. But I was just talking to some people up in Maine. They get a delivery once a week of their seafood. Cisco doesn't go up there that often. Now, as you taste these things, I'd like you to pay attention to the moisture. We can debate the marinara all day. You like this seasoning, I like that seasoning. Look at the moisture content behind the mussels for those of you who taste these. You know what we need, Jill? We could use some napkins. Oh! Pretty quick, huh? We'll just let these come up to temp here. So typically when I do a presentation, I'll take and I'll cook a variety of products. They can be steamed like broccoli, carrots. The carrots come out this vibrant orange. And people are usually blown away on the flavor profiles behind them. They're just so rich in flavor. The carrots are very sweet. I have over here some pasta that I'm going to warm up for you. What's the process in cooking pasta? We put it on a pot of water on the stove, right? Bring it up to a boil. We put our pasta inside, right? When it's done, then what do? Say it? Drain it? And then do what? Shock it with cold water, right? Then we take and we put some oil up on top, right? Okay. And then what do? We put it inside our walk-in, inside a fish tub or Lexan, and then it's storing, right? What's the temperature of that pasta going in the refrigerator? Whatever the water temperature is. So that water temperature can be 50, 60, 70 degrees, right? So now I just put it inside an incubator, which is my Lexan tub, with oil on it. Probably, if not by the next day, the following day, it starts to stink. You've just developed bacteriocidity inside your pasta, and it no longer has the shelf life that it should have. Now, when I cook pasta, I cook it, I blast chill it, I strain it. I don't pour any cold water on it. Do you want to pass some of these around for?
I'd be glad to.
Thank you, sir. Now I take the pasta out, okay? I blast chill it without any oil on it. There's no oil on this pasta. It's so cold inside the blast chiller that it closes up the pores of the pasta, locking in the starch. Think about pasta as being pasty. You want to keep the paste inside the pasta so that the sauce adheres to it and so that you have the flavor that it's supposed to have. And then last but not least, you have the shelf life. So let's just warm up a little pasta. There was a little poor planning on our part. We got a string pasta when we should have got like a short noodle. Chef?
I got a question. If I fill this thing completely full, how much efficiency does it lose? If I'm only going to put half full in.
Well, naturally, it's more efficient if it's half full. Naturally, it would be more efficient. Every machine is designed by size. So this particular unit itself is designed to be able to chill 110 pounds of product in 90 minutes or less. And that's as long as the product isn't more than 2 inches thick. Or it can freeze 60 pounds of product in 4 hours or less, as long as it's not more than 2 inches thick.
How old was these muscles?
6 months. No. No, we just cooked those mussels today.
I'm saying how fresh. When did y'all get them in?
Oh, no, we purchased those today.
Today?
We purchased them today. But typically when I do a presentation, my pasta can be, my products can be as much as a week old.
Okay. Right.
And I know that you're saying, well, boy, that's crazy, but
With the blast chiller?
with the blast chilling technology, I can, with confidence, serve product that would be much older. Chef, yes.
I want to assure you that the students are not leaving because they're bored.
Nope,
Thoroughly enjoying. We're coming up to a class break. Just so
that's fine. I understand. And also, if after the presentation, because we're going to end somewhere around 1 o'clock, around 2 o'clock. If you have questions, I'm going to be around to answer questions, okay? So all I'm going to do with this pasta over here is put it on here. I'm going to sprinkle a little cheese up on top and parsley. And I'm going to place it over here, and I'd like a couple of you to come on up and just try a little sample, okay? There's some forks over here. Now, I just want to look at these berries that we put over here before. Do you see any bleeding? Very little there. That one's got none. It's got none. That's got none, okay? There's virtually no bleeding on these berries. And they're sitting out in extreme conditions. We would never want to keep a thorough product out at room temperature, correct? Okay. So we're going to, again, leave them over here a little bit longer and we'll keep an eye on them, okay? This was a steak that was blast chilled, a piece of tenderloin that was blast chilled. We're going to be retherming some tenderloin and bringing it down a little bit later. Now we cook this tenderloin rare, Okay? But the product that we're going to retherm, you're going to see when it comes back, it's going to still be relatively rare. So we're going to keep this on display, and a little bit later we'll make a comparison, okay? Here are two cakes, okay? One cooked, both cooked, okay? One left out on the counter for, I don't know, an hour or so, because that's what we do as pastry chefs, right? We take product out of the oven, we put it on a rack, we leave it over there for X period of time, right? If you take your product out of the walk-in, out of the oven, put it right into a blast chiller, you'll extend the shelf life, but also you'll have a higher yield. So my cake will be more moist than yours. Here's some chicken. How's the pasta?
How quickly will a baked good? I'm just guessing there's not some sense the cool down or chill period will be much quicker.
It depends on the density of the cake. So a carrot cake, which is very dense, will take longer than a sponge cake. What's the thickness of it? What's the temperature going in? There's a lot of variables. So here's some chicken. Some chicken was blast chilled. Some chicken was... Thank you. We can just put it down there for now. Thanks. Some chicken was air chilled and then refrigerated. Natasha, could you pass some of these around, please? I'm going to give you a big plate. Yeah. 2 of them, please. We're going to pass this around, and I'd like you to take a piece of chicken off of each plate and make a comparison and see if you can see that one maybe has a little more flavor or a little more moisture to it, or a little better texture or color. There you go. I'll get tongs right here. Okay. What was that?
The pasta. It's better like texture from the way I do it at home, and you rinse it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
More better flavor.
Mm-hmm. How did you like your pasta? It was kind of silly. It's simple, isn't it? But now I want you to taste your pasta, though, after you've washed it. Okay?
Right.
After you've washed it at home, in the kitchen, I want you to taste that pasta. And you're going to see that there's such a difference because you've washed the starch off. Okay. What's the joke? Okay. Go ahead. What's the question?
The chicken.
Oh.
I said, I want to eat it all.
Oh. Go ahead. What's your question? I'm sorry. Okay. You want to pass some of these around, Jay?
Sure.
Okay. There's something very unique about these potatoes. Okay. Try some, and then I'll tell you what's unique about the potatoes. Okay. How are they? They taste like potatoes, right?
Yep.
They were cooked from frozen. Because of the snow-like particles, snow melts quicker than ice, right?
Yep.
So now I can take certain products and retherm them from frozen. These are those potatoes 10 minutes ago. Jay, how long did it take to retherm those potatoes?
9 minutes.
There you go.
Roasted them, then froze them, Now we just reconstituted them or rethermalized them. How do they taste?
They taste like roast potato.
Have you ever had a potato that you refrigerated overnight and then tried to reheat it? Does it taste like that?
No.
Okay, is there a big difference in the quality?
Yeah, and then what happens to the color of the potato? The potato usually gets pretty gray, right? That's why, what can I say? The reheated baked potatoes aren't very appealing because they're very gray. Okay. This is salmon. Salmon that was cooked and chilled.
And there was a piece there, also a chef, that was in the second little container that was not chilled. It was just normally put set aside and let it cool down a little bit, and then placed in regular refrigeration.
This is still a little cool. They're not really hot in the center, but they'll get the idea. How was the chicken? Anybody notice the difference in the chicken? Was one piece a little drier than the other? Yeah. What's that? What's that moisture that you have? That's your weight of the chicken. So I deal with a bagel factory in Connecticut. They have 5-ounce raw formed bagels. We take their 5-ounce raw formed bagel and I shock froze it. Thawed it, proofed it, cooked it, and chilled it down to room temperature. I took another tray of their 5-ounce raw formed bagel. I proofed it, shock froze it, thawed it, cooked it, chilled it down to room temperature. I did a series of 7-8 different tests. In every case, my bagel weighed more than their bagel. My bagel was taller than their bagel. My bagel lasted longer than their bagel. So you had to see the owner's eyes when he realized what he was experiencing. His eyes started to go like cash registers. Okay? Because he says, well, boy, now I don't have to pay a shift differential of somebody coming in at 11 o'clock at night, prepping out bagels, so I can have them ready for 6 o'clock in the morning. They were able to take their production and shift it all to the daytime. He didn't have to pay a shift differential. Nobody really lost their job. They just shifted everybody to the daytime. We got some veggies here. Mm-hmm. These are just some grilled vegetables, asparagus, squash, mixed squash, and a trickle area of peppers. Just taste the texture behind it, the flavor profile. There's a light marinade of just some olive oil and a little bit of herbs and a little balsamic vinegar, I believe. But it's very, very basic. What's this mean to you? What does this mean to you as a chef? Here you're able to work your craft, and, well, part of it is make it look good, but as you move on to be executive chef, there are going to be people under you, okay, that may take the liberty of saying, well, I'm going to cook it for 5 minutes extra, or I may not put it inside the blast chiller. This gives you more control of your end product, so that if there is a mishap, this will help make up for that. This is going to help you make smarter purchasing. This is going to help you have a better handle on your labor. The Boston Harborfront Hotel, the Boston Harborfront Hotel has banquet seating for something like 2,500 people. Prior to them getting Aeronox and Rationale combi oven, prior to a banquet, they would be running around crazy. What happens if the bride showed up a half hour late? Or what happened if the bride showed up an hour late? What happens? They now have Rationale, which they're cooking 3, 4, 5 days in advance. Blast chilling or shock freezing. Cold plating the day before or the night before. And retherming the day of. So prior to, them serving, this is what the cooks are doing. They're waiting. The bride shows up late, there's no problem. Because they blast chill the product that has all of its integrity. The bride walks in, they drop the salad, they load the plates into the combi oven. They pull them out 8 minutes later. They put this thermal cover over it, and they wait for them to pull in the plates. Now they're only saucing and garnishing, and they're done. They just took the bulk of the labor that they typically would have on that Saturday and shifted it to Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. I swear, when I was in the restaurant business, nobody called in sick on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday unless they were hungover from Sunday. Okay? Everybody wanted to call in on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So if I can take that labor and shift it over on a Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, I just have a lot happier staff. What's your question?
Do they have anything like that on cruise ships?
Yes, a lot of cruise ships actually have this technology. We're dealing with cruise ship lines right now. And, you know, who needs a blast chiller? You know, we have restaurants, we have caterers, manufacturers. We got hospitals, schools, you know, anywhere from grammar schools to colleges and universities. Pastry shop, bread bakers. We have a new bread freezer where we can freeze raw product and it won't damage the yeast. We have chocolate shops. We have banquet shops. I have a business card that I'd like to hand out to all you folks, as well as some information. If you have any questions, drop me an email. This is the technology that you're going to be dealing with over the next couple of years. It's going to be introduced more and more. In fact, eventually it's going to be mandatory. So please leave your mind open to this. While the unit is here, use it. It's going to help you out an awful lot, and you're going to be really impressed with the results, especially if you do some side-by-side comparisons. Last but not least, I would just want to show the berries one more time.
I want to say thank you to Tim.
You can come up and look at them as we leave.
And folks, a view of the future, as I described earlier, can we thank Chef Tim, the Irinox folks, and Jay Johnson, who helped rep board in this part of the country, for being here today. I know some of you need to get to your classroom, and I want to thank you for sticking with us right to the very end.
Yes, thank you very much.
You've been great. And if you want to catch a little bit more of Chef Tim and some chat about the Irinox, at 4:15 to 5:15, the evening classes will join, and you are welcome. So that would be much appreciated. And Jill, thank you to you for making the great contact with Chef.
And a special help to Natasha and Tiffany and Alan, who all helped me prep this out, and Chef back there for letting me use your kitchen. I appreciate it. But these berries are still here, and as you can see, there's virtually no bleed on these. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I got a few minutes. Does anybody have any questions?
I was just thinking, Coach, if you use it for other things other than food, like the plates and...
Well, mortuaries do use this technology. Forensic labs do use this technology.
Is it similar to the...
Where is this, our blast chillers and freezers mandatory?
In France and in Great Britain. They aren't mandatory. What's mandatory is getting the product down in time. And it becomes unrealistic to do it any other way. Listen, you pay for the water coming in to make ice, right?
Yeah.
You pay to filter the ice. You pay to make the ice. And then if you're using it for chilling purposes, you pay for having it go down the drain. Okay? And then you pay for the maintenance of the machine. It's a very costly proposition. This technology is really developed in Europe because their energy costs across the board are more expensive than our energy in the United States. They pay more for their gasoline. They pay more for their heating oil. They pay more for their electricity. So this is very energy efficient. But how's the strawberry? On a 1 to 10, a 9, a 8, a 9.5. What would you say?
I would go 8.5 because it's still frozen.
Okay, so the synthesis. But if that was thawed, it would probably be somewhere around a 9. Other questions?
Is this similar to like the big nitrogen freezers?
No,
that use in food plants?
No. A nitrogen. The question is this similar to a nitrogen system? A nitrogen system can go as low as minus 70 degrees, but they're extremely expensive. A basic nitrogen system can cost anywhere from 1.2, 1.5 million up.
And they're wasteful.
And they're very dangerous because only thing you need to do is have somebody that doesn't have all the wits about them stick their finger in there too long, and all of a sudden you have a liability suit on your hands. You have to get zoning laws for these. And I know that the liquid nitrogen is a big thing right now in restaurants, and it's kind of cool but it's very expensive. You don't see the average restaurant with this. You only see real high-profile restaurants that are getting $70 a plate. That's how they can justify the expense. But it's totally different. And if your nitrogen system goes down, you got nothing. Everybody know Blue Bunny ice cream? Okay. Blue Bunny had a fire on their site, and their system was down for X period of time. And if I understand the story right, it was more than 4 months. They never ran out of ice cream because they had nitrogen system that they were able to freeze that far in advance. And it happened in their busiest time of year. Chef?
How do you cool the refrigeration unit? Is it air cooled or water cooled?
You can get air cooled or water cooled. You had a question back there?
Yeah, a couple of questions if I could. First of all, in regards to the Freon, are they using regular Freon for the machine?
The Freon is R404.
The new kind. Secondly, do they make the machine this size, or do they looking for like make the compressor fit in walk-in coolers?
We have rolling units that can be retrofitted to have your walk-in accept them. So what would happen, it would butt up against your walk-in. Your walk-in company would need to make an opening to allow this to be able to go in.
But they are not looking to have it as a walk-in freezer or a walk-in for safety issue?
Will you ever have a walk-in version?
Oh, we have, well, we don't call them walk-ins for the most part. We call them roll-ins. So we have units that can handle, we have one unit that can chill 1,700 pounds of product in 90 minutes or less. That's a lot of product. You know, we have, and that same unit can freeze almost 900 pounds of product in 4 hours or less. So that's pretty big, yes.
You fill one of those up, say, with fruit or whatever. What do you do with it then? You just take it out, put it in your regular freezer?
Yes, once you've established the ice crystals, then it will maintain the ice crystals. What you do need to do, though, is protect your product in your freezer. This doesn't blow cold air. It doesn't blow cold air. What is heat? Heat is the absence of cold, right? Make sense? Okay. So if I remove the heat, I have cold. That's what this unit does. It removes the heat. That draws the heat out of your product. That's why the business card stayed on the back screen. Okay? It's removing the heat out of your product. So it takes flavors and it draws it straight back. It takes aromas and draws it straight back if there are any. If you have a chiller that blows cold air, you're also blowing flavors around. You're blowing, you may have splash. So you may have some cross-contamination. Okay? But more importantly, what do you have when you have something that blows cold air? What's it doing to your food?
Dry it out.
There you go. We put clothes on the line in order to dry them out, right? We hope that gentle breeze comes in, dries them out, right? It's the same thing if you have a blast chiller that blows cold air, it dries out your product. So you chill inside here uncovered. Everything in here that was blast chilled or shock frozen were uncovered. It won't freeze or burn it. Question?
Yeah, how about refreeze? If I thaw too many...
That's a good question. Refreeze. Why aren't we supposed to refreeze?
We destroy
Bacteria.
the texture and then spoilage. Risk of a...
Well, actually, the reason behind it was because you just never had a good product the second time around, one. Two is the bacterial growth because so many people were thawing out on their counter. And we all know we're not supposed to do that, right? But now if I can preserve the cellular structure of the product, right? If I can preserve the cellular structure of the product, I technically can refreeze. I'm not going to tell you you're going to have the same product as what was frozen the first time, but it's going to be much better than what you ever thought it was going to be. We did the testing with potatoes. Typically, we did low temperature cooked potatoes. And we cooked them, shock froze them, rethermed them, froze them, rethermed them, froze them, rethermed them. It blew my mind on how well they came out. They weren't as good the third time as they were the first time, but I'll almost guarantee you the product that you were tasting on that third time was better than what you get in the average restaurant. And what you got the first 2 times was above what you would get in the restaurant, your average restaurant. What was your question?
Can you blend different flavors such as cake and seafood at the same time, and it will affect the flavor of the...
That's a really great question because this draws everything back, you don't have the flavor transfer. So the answer to that is yes. What's also unique about this is on your refrigerator, or on your walk-in, you have one entry point for the refrigerant. If you're familiar with evaporator coil, you have this coil that goes through, this copper coil that goes through your evaporator coil with all these fins. Everybody know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Okay. There's a single entry point. The refrigerant comes in up here and goes like this. And by the time it gets to the bottom, it's just not as cold. Well, this unit, instead of having one entry point, this unit probably has somewhere around 12 entry points, so that the cabinet distribution of temperature is even all the way through. Independent testing showed that there can be as much as a 30-degree swing from the top to bottom if you don't have a multi-point injection. So can you imagine pulling your product at 40 degrees, wrapping it, putting it inside your walk-in, and all of a sudden down the bottom, when it's still at 70 degrees, and you just created an incubator. 2 days later, you take this product out that was down the bottom that was at 70 degrees, you say it's bad, you throw everything out. When in reality, the stuff at the top might have still been okay. Evenness of cabinet temperature is very important to you.
Tim, I noticed you have a probe inside your
Yes.
chiller. When you have
This particular unit runs on time or temperature. Okay? So if I want to run under automatic mode, I would take the core probe, put it to the center of my product, close the door, pick my mode, my cycle that I want to go in, pick the mode as far as automatic or manual, and then push start. This particular unit has 3 cycles. Has a soft cycle. It's for chilling delicate things. It has that cycle itself, the cabinet temperature will never go below 32 degrees. Then it has a hard cycle. It's for doing more dense product. The cabinet temperature can go as low as -4. But as the product comes down in temperature, the cabinet temperature comes up to meet it. So you should still not get any edge freezing on your product as long as you're putting the right product in at that temperature. And then the last one would just be the shock freezing. Then again, we have the automatic mode and we have the manual mode. The manual mode only runs on time. So if I put manual freeze, it would run for 4 hours straight.
Tim, you want to talk about the cleaning and the sanitizing of the equipment?
Yep. This particular machine is the daily cleaning of this is just washing out with mild soap and water. That's it. No harsh chemicals, no steel wool, no scrubbies, nothing like that. Everything is just a soft cloth, mild soap and water, a mild rinse with just with water. This particular unit you don't even have to sanitize because it has a UV light inside of it. So daily maintenance would be I would run a defrost cycle, which means I would take this plug out of the bottom. I would push these 3 raindrops right here, and then I would push start. The unit is defrosting. Why do we have a manual defrost? Because the last thing you want to do in the middle of a chilling cycle is go into a defrost cycle, especially for HACCP purposes. When that's done, you put the plug back in. Most of the moisture will drip to a drip pan down below. These shelves come out. That way you're able to run the shelves and the shelf holders through the dish machine. Wipe out the inside. You close the door. This has a UV light in it, so I push the UV light button right here, and I push start, and right now it's sterilizing the inside of my box. Who is that important for? Well, I look at it this way: the higher the exposure to liability, the more sense it makes for you to have something like a UV light. These machines also have the capabilities of printing out the cycle or recording the cycle that you just chilled or froze for HACCP purposes. What happens if I freeze something and the core probe is frozen inside? I push this button down here and start, and it heats the core probe up long enough for me to be able to slide out the probe without bending it, you know. Please be delicate with the probe, even though it's pretty heavy duty. You don't want to, you don't want to be shifting it back and forth because you will damage it. Other questions, please? Now, thank you for your time. Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, I'm going to be around here for a while, so if you have more questions, I'll be happy to answer.